Good evening, everybody. For those that don't know who I am, my name is Dennis Shepherd, and I had the good fortune to be elected as the President of the BSWA last Saturday at the AGM. So I'm very pleased to be here, and I've got great expectations and a great feeling for the year ahead. But this meeting has been called especially just to talk about the changes to the Constitution that were proposed last Saturday at the AGM and unfortunately were lost. For those, I'm sure that everybody here knows the circumstances around that now, that Ajahn Brahm unfortunately resigned his post as the spiritual director I'm hoping it's for the time, and we're now trying to work just to make things right and to bring everything back onto an even keel. So the very first thing that I would like to say really is to offer a big thanks to the previous committee and Drew Bellamy, the president, last year, and the whole committee that actually has really set out for us a groundwork that is going to be very beneficial for us, I think, for this year, because they looked at many things, many difficult things for the society, and they've left for us a platform to work from, a structure that we can sort of go into and work from this year. But I would like to just talk to you a little bit about this structure and why the Buddhist Society feels the need to change the Constitution in the way that we did. It's a very simple change, actually, that this change that we're talking about here, as I'm sure you'll agree when I get to just tell you what it's about. But I'd like to just run you through the way the society has grown, really, over the years, certainly since I've known it. I mean, I was here a long time ago, probably longer than I even care to remember, really, when the Buddhist Society was first getting involved in the house over in Magnolia Street, and the library was at one point in the boot of a car, and we're sort of moving it round. So, but since those kind of easy, languid days, as I look back on them, the Buddhist Society has moved forward apace, really, and now it's just a totally different organisation than really what it was way back then. We can certainly thank a lot of that growth, well, really to all of the monks, you know, right the way through from the time that Ajahn Jagaro was here. I can remember when he was here and the beautiful and wonderful teachings, and I'm sure those people that are here that remember him will remember him with the same fondness that I do. And if Ajahn Jagaro or John Chenchosi, as his name is now, is listening to this, you know, hello, John. We're very proud of you. And of course, Ajahn Brahm took over from Ajahn Jagaro. Ajahn Brahm is certainly a very special kind of person, though. He's a monk that's not only lives Buddhism in the way that he does and is able to sort of teach it. He's a funny man. But he's got, I think, what everybody recognises as a congruency in him, where you can see the Dharma shining out of him. He's a monk that's, you know, that if you're going to get some spiritual advice from him, it's very, very good advice. And that's really why his teachings are so well taken up by everybody around the world, so profound. You know, so that we get to the point now where our society is not just a little organisation. Our society, you know, not only just here, we've got our monks' monastery at Bodhinyana, we've got our nuns' monastery at Dharmasara, and we've got a very beautiful retreat centre that takes a lot of management, 60-bedroom retreat centre that's in full use all of the time. And then, of course, we've got Dharmaloka here that does take some looking after too. But on top of that, the worldwide attention that has come onto this society has really put pressures in many ways that I think a lot of people, and perhaps even members, don't fully realise, because Ajahn Brahm, in his capacity now, gets called upon for many different duties, many different things that but most of us that just maybe come along on Friday nights or don't really look too far, it's just difficult to understand the amount of things that he has his head around. I've just written down here that he's a spiritual director in Hong Kong, spiritual director in Singapore. In the UK at the moment, we're kind of working to build a monastery, and I've heard some good reports about that too, and the advances that are going on in there with that. He's helping the monastery in Melbourne. He's sort of involved with Santee Monastery in New South Wales. He's also spiritual director in Malaysia. He is probably instrumental in organising and helping to keep together and supporting the Australian Sangha Association. And that organisation, of course, just had its annual general meeting here in Perth, down at the Jana Grove Centre, just a week or two ago, I think that was. And, of course, then there's the Federation of Australian Buddhist Councils that he's also involved with. So we have our own state council, and most states have a council now, so there's this overarching umbrella groups that we're sort of involved in. Many of it, I might say, just as a credit to the members here too. Our membership and the volunteers here are tremendously involved in all of this. In the local Boone, in fact, Boone, our treasurer here, is in fact the president of the West Australian Buddhist Council. And then, of course, we've got Cecilia Mitra, who is the president of the Federation of Australian Buddhist Councils. And there's a whole lot of work that sort of gets done here that's I'm very, very pleased that our society supports and helps. But I'm only telling you this because I'm trying to indicate to you some of the pressures and the workload that sort of goes with all of this, because whilst it might just sound ordinary, it's really not. It ends up getting beyond the realm of just being able to have volunteers, do the work that's required to administrate it, or at least to do the work and have it so that it's so that we don't have legal problems and things like that. Like even last year, as Ajahn Brahm was saying, we had questions from the taxation department about the way that we are moving money around. And these questions have to be answered properly, and we have to be responsible. We have to sort of take care of all of these things. And that does take, it's a fair load on volunteers to do it. So this is really why I'm suggesting to you that we need to professionalise our society. And there's many, in a way, and I'm making a distinction here. I'm not talking about corporatising. I'm not talking about making the society into some sort of, business juggernaut or something like that. It's just really a matter of being able to professionalise to a level that we can cope and work with all of these situations that we find ourselves with now, to be able to sort of talk to the taxation department properly, to be able to have people to organise our IT and all of that properly, to know what's the right thing to purchase, the right things to buy, the security that's here. There's all of this work. Now, this is the reason why the committee last year started to look at a change in the Constitution to allow subcommittees to come in to be here, subcommittees that the committee could populate with members of the society, members that perhaps have some sort of expertise that might be helpful on those committees, because there's 8 members on the committee, and at the present moment the Constitution only allows subcommittees to be populated by those 8 members of the committee. And that obviously is not a real good thing for the committee. It puts a tremendous load on everybody. So this is the intent behind that change in the Constitution, to be able to populate subcommittees with members that are outside of the committee. And I know that there's all sorts of things that you could worry about with that, and there's things that probably some people that were there last Saturday that caused this motion to fail. There's probably some things that they would like to say to you about the dangers and the problems and all the things that could happen by doing this. The way that the way that we might be, that sometimes how the governance of the organisation might fail. But really, we need to, I think, learn how to trust a bit, to trust that the committee will sort of set these subcommittees up properly. They'll have proper terms of reference, and they'll have limitations on what they can do, what they can spend, what they can organise. And I think that what happened with Ajahn Brahm last week was that he's, in a way, I think, come to the end of his tether. I mean, those of us that know him know that he's very, very overworked. I mean, I have certainly in the last year and been quite concerned about the amount of work that he takes on, because he's not a man that easily kind of gives up this workload either, I might say, as Ajahn Brahmali will probably attest. But he's now realised that he has to do it, and I think this was part of the reason why you saw what happened last Saturday, when he really did want to. He wanted to give us a message that it's time for change in the society. And just with what I've said, I think it's a fair case to make out that we do this change to start to move the society in a direction where we can rely on people that are maybe professional with what they're doing and sort of know what they're doing, so that Ajahn Brahm can take a rest from some of this, because he does end up, it always ends up as him as the last stop. There's a sort of a bit of a joke that goes around the committees or people when they're asking Ajahn Brahm to do something, people will say, just be the last person to ask me if there's a whole lot of different things or different ways that you might want to do things. Be the last person to go to him, because the last person will be who gets the nod in the end, because he's a very, he's a yes man, Ajahn Brahm. He sort of says yes to everything, really. And, I think finds it difficult sometimes to sort of separate out these competing situations that come. So the time has really come where the Buddhist Society does need to, I guess, start to stand on our own 2 feet. I mean, I think of it often as like, as I mentioned in my letter on that I put on the webpage this week, that we're sort of in this process of growing pains. And I know that there's a lot of people in the society, and I'm really one of them too, that kind of look back at the volunteers days. I mean, I don't really, the money that's donated here, I don't sort of want it just spent willy-nilly, or, it's people's hard-earned money, and we want to sort of use it and spend it in the best possible way that we can. But in a way, I think we are doing that, because Dharma is really starting to flourish. If there's one thing that Ajahn Brahm, the one legacy that we have from having him as the spiritual director, Dharma is being planted and grown all around the world now. There's centres starting up, and there's Buddhism growing everywhere. And that's really the remit of what the constitution of this society is about. We are about growing Buddhism. This is why we develop monasteries, so that monks and nuns can train and really become proficient in living Dharma. And I think that we're doing that admirably as a society. I think our society can be really, really proud of what we've done, and even the people overseas now that are sort of involved with us too, because just being inspired by Ajahn Brahm's words, and the way that his brand of Buddhism, the way that he explains it, is really very, 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 very familiar and resonates with a lot of people. And I think we need to support that. We need to support him in doing this. So I think, is there anything else that I should say, Leha, that I haven't mentioned? Yeah, just before I do that too, I would like to just recognise here too, just the, what I think is one of the most beautiful things about this Buddhist society is the way that we bring the cultures together. I mean, it's really always been thus here too. I think our monks in the main were trained in Thailand, so there was always a big Thai community here, and the Thai community are wonderful. But I mean, every culture I think in the world is just about here now, whether it's from Chinese, whether it's Malaysian, whether it's Sri Lankan, whether it's Burmese, Laotian, the whole lot. This Buddhist society has a mixture of all these cultures, and it's the most beautiful thing to see. The way, and the thing that I really like about it too is that the way that all these cultures are sort of starting to blend together, and we're starting to make an Australian Buddhism. It's kind of seems to be coming out, and I just think that's just wonderful, because we need to be able to, in this country, I think, sort of own the Buddhism that we're creating. And all of these cultures are really helping us to do that as they kind of come together and meld, and we kind of join together and support each other. It is it's just a beautiful thing to see when you see the Dharnas here, and you see the different people that have come to support the monks. It is one of the things that I'm most proud of, really, of this society. And just to mention too that whilst I know there's a few people feeling that they've perhaps not been heard the way that they want to be heard, or maybe that their toes have been stepped on in a way, I just wanted to say that the way that we kind of conduct this business is really very important, because it is what's happening right now, in this present moment. And the way that we handle and support each other, the way that we care for each other, is really what Dharma is all about. The way that we can maybe listen to another person's point of view, the way that we can let go of our point of view if there's a majority of people that don't necessarily see it that way. And then always it's going to be that perhaps the majority might be wrong. That's happened often enough. But if the majority are wrong, it's really a matter of then saying, well, let's offer forgiveness for all of that and let's get on and make whatever we're doing right. But the thing is that we have to just go forward, and we have to go forward with wisdom and with skill. And this is really what the Buddha Dharma and the Sangha is all about. We're all kind of here living embodiments of the way that we practice our Buddhism, what the monks and the nuns are sort of teaching us here, how to live our lives, how to run this organisation in a way that the Buddha would be proud of. And I think by and large we do that. We're a good organisation. It's a very, very fine organisation, this one, something to be proud of. And so with those few words, I'm just going to call for questions in a moment, but Leha, you were mentioning, I should mention about the special general. Yeah, just mention that again. So the committee did meet this week, and we have, because we were requisitioned in the appropriate way to call for a special general meeting. The committee felt it was very important that we do fix up the issues that got lost at the last annual general meeting, And I think, by and large, everybody, I think, is on side with that now. There's, we certainly don't want to leave anyone out of the tent. We want everyone in our society to be in with us, so that we can be all together with this. Now, and just in saying that, I know that Ajahn Brahm has sent a message via Ajahn Brahmali tonight to just to let me know that next Saturday he will be here at 5 p.m. He's doing a retreat this week. He's a 9-day retreat, but he will be here next Saturday at 5 p.m, willing to talk to anybody that wants to talk to him personally about any issue with regard to the special general meeting that is coming up on the 22nd of April. And he also just wanted to say too, and I think just again, that makes me choke when I say this, but he wanted me to say that, he means what he's saying here. He doesn't want to be just a monk that's or a spiritual director that that is just sort of walked over or not heard, because he feels that he's not heard too. So, I think it's very important for us to make things right for him, just so that his future, is here, and we have him as our spiritual director. And I know that he certainly will. He will take that role back on. As hopefully things progress in a positive way. So, yeah. Do you want to follow up on anything that I've mentioned there?
Okay, should I? Yeah? Okay.
If you want to, just say a few words, then we'll take some questions.
Sure, okay. Yeah, I guess I can say a few words. I just want to remind everyone that, the importance of Ajahn Brahm for this Buddhist society. I've been here myself for almost 24 years, part of the monastery down in Serpentine, and I've seen how central, how absolutely fundamental Ajahn Brahm has been over those 24 years for the basically what this Buddhist society is today. From the nuns' monastery in Dhammasara, from the bhikkhuni ordinations that we had, from the establishment of the meditation center, from the growth of Bodhinyana monastery. Yeah, we have 25 monks there now, and the kind of people are literally trying knocking down the doors to get into our monastery. That's how hard it is to become monk these days, which is wonderful. Yeah, it's a wonderful thing that this happens. And also the online service that we have with Ajahn Brahm was very positive and supportive in establishing those. So basically, in many ways, Ajahn Brahm almost is this Buddhist society. It's very hard to imagine what this Buddhist society would be without Ajahn Brahm. It would be a very, very, very different place. And because of his vision over the years, his understanding of the issues, his good judgment all the way through, I think we owe put a lot of confidence in Ajahn Brahm. And if he is happy with going, or he actually thinks it's fundamentally important for the Buddhist society to go ahead with the suggestion that we have now, when I must admit, I really agree with Ajahn Brahm on this. I think it is so important that we show him that support. And even if we are slightly at odds, we may disagree with some of the issues, to show your willingness to let go of some of your own viewpoints, just to because of Ajahn Brahm's background, because he has shown himself to be such a basically visionary and fundamentally trustworthy person of such a long period of time, to support him on that, especially when we know that now his health is kind of going a little bit down. He's 60, how old is he now? 66? Yes, 66 I think it is. So obviously he's getting older, his energy level isn't the same that it was 20 years ago. So he really needs the support of the membership as well. This is not a one-way street. We have to kind of support each other. So I would implore you all to please consider it very carefully. Remember the big picture here. The big picture is Ajahn Brahm is so fundamental to this organization. Let's put our small, lesser things to one side and kind of be unified about that support. And then I think we have a great future together in this Buddhist society. Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn Brahmali. I was remiss in not really starting off by introducing Ajahn Brahmali, our current spiritual director. You can see how he takes that on with a big smile. and Venerable Cassipa sitting next to him, a very, very fine, outstanding young monk, up-and-coming young monk. And I might say too, just about Venerable Cassipa, he's a very, very good speaker. If ever you can, if you're looking to get a good Dharma talk, Venerable Cassipa is the monk. He's not giving too much away there though, is he? Is there any questions from the floor?
My name is Paul Firth, and I was here on Saturday, and what I think, you've pointed out plenty of stuff, Dennis, and it's really good, but one thing that should be pointed out was that the people that are here on Saturday, they understood it, and we voted. A yes vote was overwhelming in this hall. It was only the proxy situation, which we hope has been solved, but it still worries me that there's 5 votes a person and 4 people can walk with 5 votes and there's 20. And if you got a meeting of only 60 or 70, to me that's still not good if you've got there people whose mind operates like that. We're not having a meeting of Commonwealth Bank shareholders or the local union or something like that, and possibly we should think about our proxy votes being available to members that are sick or out of the state and come or have bought a statutory declaration stating that and have their votes sealed in an envelope and handled in. But to have people walking into an organisation like this with handfuls of votes, it's not right. I don't think it's right. It's certainly not ethical. So it still disturbs me that 4 people can walk in and there's 20 votes. And looking at social media after our meeting, there was a number of people that put in proxy votes that didn't really know what it was about. Nothing had been explained to them, the pros or the cons, and that's just a bit disturbing. So I'd just like to remind everybody at the meeting here in this hall, it was an overwhelming yes vote. We mustn't forget that.
Thank you for that. And just before Leha starts, I'd just like to introduce you to her. Leha is the new elected Vice President of the Buddhist Society of Western Australia and a great colleague, and she'll address that question.
Thanks for reminding us your observation during the last AGM. So indeed, I think the motion was kind of like overruled because of the proxies. And we had a review at the proxy form, and we did notice that on our current proxy form, it just says that you give the proxy to someone and then the person would just make the decision as he or she deems fit. So we recognize that there is an issue there. So with the special general meeting that will be happening on the 22nd of April, we will be sending out a new proxy form, and on the proxy form, we will actually provide boxes where you can tick whether you support the motion or you don't, such that the person that is representing you would not be making their own decision on your behalf, but rather they are executing your decision. So that's one of the change that we will be making. The other thing that we are considering, and we are trying to figure out how we can get that work, is I understand that there's a lot of listeners, viewers that we have all over the world, and they want to be part of this process. So we are trying to figure out from the technology point of view how we can allow voting to happen online as well. So that's something that we're looking to as well. And so, yes, we do acknowledge that there was an issue around proxy. So hopefully, with whatever that has happened, and for those of you who has Facebook account, you can see how vibrant Facebook is as far as BSWA is concerned, and lots of people putting their comments in there. So we definitely acknowledge that there was an issue with the proxy, and it has, fortunately or unfortunately, created the awareness around how important proxies are, and that a lot of times, perhaps previously in the past, that people have unknowingly just given a proxy away thinking that, yep, the person would represent him or her, but then it was kind of like abuse in a certain way. So we are in the process of modifying the form so that you can actually provide specific instructions such that the person can represent you accordingly.
And I might say that that's probably, again, goes to the point of professionalising our society, because these kind of new rules we've subsequently found out during the week are in the latest business models and governmental rules that have come out in the last couple of years. But again, we really weren't up to speed with it all. But we will be looking at that. But I might just say that what happened though last Saturday was legal. There was nothing illegal about what happened in the vote being lost. Because I don't want it to be put about that those members were doing something that was illegal. It was certainly, or improper. It wasn't that way at all.
And I think what we're really trying to do, which Dennis has mentioned in the earlier part of his speech, is to try and connect with these people to understand, what were their thought process, why were they opposing to it, and even in the last committee meeting that we had, we want to make sure that the whole committee is kind of like supporting, and we all move towards a common goal, a common vision for BSWA, and I think that's what we are really encouraging everyone to do. If you do have a concern that perhaps we are not acting appropriately, or you don't agree with certain things that we've said, or even those discussions that we had in the AGM, feel free to approach any one of us to have a conversation. We're very open about it. We'd rather that we talk about it, rather than you go away and talk to someone else and then the information got lost along the way. So we do encourage each and every one of you to kind of like approach any of the committee members, and I believe even Ajahn Brahmali would be open enough to have that kind of conversation.
Yeah. And remember, next Saturday. Is it man up the back?
My name is Richard Thomas,
Yeah.
and I'd first of all like to say that personally, and I'm sure the rest of us, have a great debt of gratitude to all Ajahn Brahm has done over these decades. And I just think it's very important to say that explicitly, how grateful we all are for all the wonderful things, the teachings and the organisation and the flair and the imagination that Ajahn Brahm has shown over these decades. So, important. What I'm going to say, please forgive me if I raise a sensitive matter in a way which is perhaps not as delicate and well phrased as some people would be able to do, but I do think it's a fact that Ajahn Brahm's health is not as good as it was. And of course we're all getting older, and for those of us who are that sort of age, we know you run out of energy much more easily than when you're younger. And there's no question about this. And so I wonder whether the society should give thought to perhaps creating a position for Ajahn Brahm in recognition of all the tremendous things he's done over the years, such as emeritus spiritual director. So he's not the executive spiritual director in the sense that he's been in the past, but that he is the spiritual guide in the bigger sense in which Dennis so eloquently explained, but that really a method is found for Ajahn actually to be able to start a process of unwinding and actually letting go.
Thank you, Richard, for that, for those comments. Actually, what just comes to mind though, it would be probably nice if you mentioned that to him yourself. Well, what I mean by that is that, well, you would know more than, well, as well as any of us anyway, that Ajahn Brahm loves what he's doing, and he's not, I mean, he has such a fervour for growing Buddhism, you know, he's got it's almost like he's got sort of an insight into the universe, into the way that things can be achieved. And I mean, even so to the extent of next year, the FABC is looking to have the Visakha Day at Kirribilli House in Sydney. So, you know, there's sort of, this is really where his mind goes to all of the time. I'm not too sure that he'd be ready for emeritus yet, but it's a point that's well made, and perhaps Ajahn Brahmali can make sure that that conversation is relayed to Ajahn Brahm in an appropriate way. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think, Richard, that's actually one of the purposes of the proposal at the AGM, is actually to kind of move a bit in that direction. The idea is to reduce the workload for the committee overall. That will also reduce the workload for Ajahn Brahm. So it's actually a movement towards that. It's a kind of first step. But you have a point down the line, maybe soon, you will have to take further steps down that way. I think you're probably right about that. Yeah.
And I think for those people, especially those online, who might be kind of like worried that Ajahn Brahm is not here. And we had explained that Ajahn is actually on 9-day retreat in Jana Grove. And this morning I was in Jana Grove to attend his talk. And he is as humorous as before. And so I told Ajahn once, I said, the way he kind of like, sometimes when he takes in a lot, and for me personally, I get very affected, but he'll just let it go. So I often tell him that he's more responsive than my remote control. The way he switches channels is much faster than any layperson can handle. And actually, that's what I saw with my eyes this morning. I went there to get some relief because I'm very stressed. I think the new committee are all very stressed. So I went there just to listen to his talk and do some meditation. And so he's feeling very good, but he's of course concerned about what's happening. So we will definitely pass the message to him. Thanks, Richard.
Is there any other questions from the floor? There's just two questions that have come in on the internet. It's one from Germany here that just says, does that mean Ajahn Brahm will not be on the internet anymore? Will he give Dharma talks, sutta classes and guided meditations anymore? Yes, of course he will. Well, of course he will. That's all the only thing I can say about it. I mean, no one, you can't really say anything for certain, can you? I mean, nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. The future is certainly uncertain. But I think it is still his intention to, to be around to teach the Dharma.
And Dennis, just to add on, I think Ajahn is really kind of like watching to see what's happening in the SGM in the next special general meeting before he makes a decision on what's going to happen.
And the second question is from Germany as well. If all the people on subcommittees are members of the BSWA, why is there a problem? If you want control at the committee level, then all members of subcommittees to be approved by the committee. Well, that's kind of right. I know though, that's how I see it, as simply as that too. I haven't got this gentleman's name, but I do see that as simple as what's been stated there. It really, the committee will be controlling the subcommittees, but apparently there are some issues in the incorporations law and a few things like that that I mean, some people are suggesting could be a concern, but we're looking at all of that now anyway. But yes, I think that the answer to this really is just as simple as that. We're not trying to do anything tricky, or it's just a matter of it's just too much to be able to sort of populate subcommittees with just 8 members of the committee. It just doesn't, and especially when most of us on the committee too might not have the expertise that we're looking for that subcommittee to report back with. So that's the reason for the change. So I think that's all. That's all for now. But just following the normal format of the meeting, may I just take just a little bit more time, and Ajahn Brahmali, just to say to give 2 announcements. I know that so the BSWA is open on Easter Monday for membership and book sales from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Guided meditation from 2 to 3 p.m. So that's Easter Monday. And the BSWA Sunday School has cancelled its classes, so there's no classes over Easter. And just a plug too for the introduction to meditation, which will not be tomorrow, but because tomorrow is just the 31st of March, I think, isn't it? 31st of March tomorrow. So the introduction to meditation class will begin again the following Saturday, the first Saturday of the month, and that goes on for 4 weeks. So thank you very much, Ajahn Brahmali, and I'll hand the
Great. Okay. Thank you
meeting
so
over
much,
to you.
Dennis, for that summary of everything here. So now let's maybe chill down a little bit. So just get ready, do some meditation together, get a comfortable position for yourself, and we get started here.